Hi everyone! Welcome back to 3D Boost. Today we are continuing our AAA game asset course, creating the low poly base for the MP5 submachine gun. In this episode we will focus on clean topology, proper edge flow, and keeping the mesh optimized for real-time engines. This step is crucial to ensure high quality baking and smooth texturing later on. Let's jump right in and start refining the lower section of our MP5. So now this is the third lesson and we have a draft model, some details we have not yet done. Also, as I noticed, we did not finish the butt a little, the lower part of it, but we will finish it within the framework of low poly modeling. This is not a problem. So we start with the lower receiver of our model. It's already matches the dimensions of the geometry we will start to adjust it to the dimensions more accurately. As we see in the reference, our handle has some soft shape. Also, it has a rounding. It has a geometry like this. I don't want if we want to make a hole in the handle, but the geometry here is pretty complicated. Okay, at the moment we have a solidify modifier and our handle. In fact, for now it's only a plane. So now I will continue to form the profile more precisely, after which I will apply modify. And our model is low poly, so I will keep it within 15-20,000 polygons. It depends what we want. For some cinematic shots, you can grow the polygon count up to 50,000 and more. Or for games like Call of Duty or Iron Infinite, you should have more polygons, but for game 2A or maybe for mobile game you should have lower count of poly count. These requirements you can receive from game designer or from the art lead or from tech lead, but for our course we will not limit ourselves, but we are making a game ready, so we will still monitor the poly count and we will keep it within reasonable limits. I'm adding a few subdivision here and adjusting the form. Okay, we get this shape, this bracket of trigger in accordance with the reference. We will change it and later maybe we will merge with the lower part of our gun, but now the width of the lower is good for us. If we want to make a bevel here and the pretty dense edges bevels will break our bevel. So now in this stage we can reduce a little the edges if we want a pretty big bevel. So we can dissolve some edges to bevel be good. And after it we can slightly adjust the form after the bevel. But we don't need such a big bevel, so we need a bevel judging by our reference only here and here, and it's smaller from one part and a bigger from another. So let's make one part of chamfer. I forget to turn on shrinkcast, so now you can see buttons I pressing. And another one bevel with slightly different width. Something like this. That's the bevel at the top and the back. It's somewhat larger than in the front side and the bottom. As we can see, we need to move on to rounding on the handle. And slightly adjust the topology. So we need to make a strongly rounded handle. I'm choosing the subdivision of the bevel by wheeling my wheel on the mouse. And also pretty big bevel in the front side, but not so big as at the back. Then we will form a more suitable geometry. This is how we will further optimize this part. And now this part has a bad shading, but we will fix it later. I just hid this polygon to make a subdivide only for this one polygon, not for our shape. At this moment I'm thinking if I should sew this bracket into my main form, or I should leave it as a separate part, and we will bake it after. We'll bake this seam after on baking. The transition of the bracket will be simply baked from high poly to low poly, but the bracket, it's a separate part. To match the points, you can press one point and shift select another one and press M button and match at last or match at first. But I made it with my add-on machine tools just with pressing Ctrl 1 or Shift 1 buttons. And sometimes I will speed up a video for you when I just making a topology without any interesting moments or commentaries. I'm using a knife tool and a join vertices to make the shape like on the reference. Here I am still planning and thinking how to quickly and efficiently make a good shape of our handle so that it is also round when we view to it from below. Next, I will occasionally speed up the footage, only in moments where I'm not actively commenting and simply tweaking topology or adjusting edge flow. Whenever the video is speed up, you will see a small X2 icon in the bottom right corner of the screen. So, I continue refining the grip topology of our submachine gun MP5. I'm trying to find an optimal edge layout that preserves the correct silhouette and will bake cleanly later on. As you can see right now, we have some shading artifacts on the surface. We could fix them by adding hard edges, but since we will be baking normal layers, it's not necessary for this particular part. Now, let's move on to the fire selector switch. It has a pretty simple shape and it's symmetrical on both sides of the weapon. Here, I'm also adjusting the inner part of the fire selector switch, making it slightly wider. This helps avoid harsh 90-degree angles, which could cause shading issues or baking artifacts during the normal map bake. I'm not entirely happy with the shading of these long triangles above the grip. I might rework the topology a bit later to improve the result. Now, the trigger guard need to blend smoothly into these widened sections. That's exactly what we are going to do. We will sculpt a nice high poly transition and bake it into the low poly. However, we are not planning to merge these two objects in the low poly mesh, so the guard will remain a separate object. Let's get started with the trigger. On our references we don't have any hole under the trigger, so I don't want to add a hole to the lower without. Also, we should take into account that we have specific form of a trigger because it's a hollow inside. We can see it on the reference. It's hollow inside and curved in this shape. So we can apply the solidify modifier, then delete some parts and apply it again. I will add the solidify modifier again with an internal inset. A few will notice this, but let's do it. I will apply a modifier and I'm removing the unnecessary details which player can see. Also align top edges. Also I can reduce geometry inside our shape because no one will definitely see it. So inside the trigger I will remove this bevel and I will remove this central loop. I can also even collapse some of the edges like this. After it, I can change the size of the inner part a little to have not a 90-degree angle on the baking. And as we can see, this edge of the trigger also don't have 90 degrees angle. It's good for baking. Because on the baking, it's not good when you have precise 90 degrees level or 90 degrees angle. Okay, the trigger suits me quite well. That's the trigger guard and all over. Then we should add this part. We can add it completely on the normal map because it's a pretty flat rivet that is particularly invisible on the silhouette, and we can make it using a floater. We will make the geometry on the high poly and simply bake it into the low poly. And on the low poly object we don't have any our lower part. Let's correct the shape of a magazine receiver a little. It's because our references is slightly rotated on the axis to the right, and so we can see the inner part of the gun. And naturally the shape is look like this, and it's connect with the forend of the gun. Also we can see that this selector actually goes magazine receiver. Also, as you can see, the thickness of the magazine receiver is wider than our magazine, but wider than a, but thinner than a lower. Because I don't apply solidify and I have non-1 scales, it's applying pretty strange, so in fact the shape is like this. But perhaps we can do it without, and we will make a joint of our of our both part and cylinder more simple. So I'm applying a modifier for magazine receiver. After it I have to make construct approximately the thickness of a lower. Also we have a bevel on the entire front part. I will remove this bevel for now to make this long bevel. Don't forget to apply a scale to make the bevel properly. I'll mirror my shape. Also, we have roundings on the back. Okay, and here I'm trying to correct the shape to merge the upper cylinder with a magazine receiver. And now we should correct this cylinder a little because we have a gap. Also, maybe I deleted one of my cutter. I'll make it later. This part will be wider. Here I'm just trying to make a good topology and dissolve unnecessary vertices. I'm making a hole for magazine. like, and this shape is like on the references. I just extrude it inside and fill the hole. So in the fact we have a hole here, and I'm just using the boolean to make it. I'm also cloning this cutter, and I will cut a hole from our lower part with this slightly modified cutter. Also, I should move it slightly down because the cylinder should pierce this part. Also, you can duplicate your cutter and convert it into a solid mesh like this. Just in object settings in right bottom corner. And now I have a form like my cutter, but it's a simple geometry. And I slightly correct the shape of this button. After which I'm extruding this detail and I'm adding a chamfer to it. We could make a double bevel here. We will save a polygon and it's a pretty little detail, so it's good. After which I would like to adjust this cutter to be a little bigger from the inner part, from the outer part, and a little. And now this cutter have an angle like this, not a parallel, but it's tapered towards its inner part, and thereby forming a favorable shape and joint for baking. Okay, also we have here such an element and such an this bracket overlay. And on the other side of the weapon we have a similar overlay, but it could be also be baked. But now I will make it with geometry, and in the end, if I will have a lot of polygons, I will reduce it. Okay, and because I cut this object from the inner part, I have some artifacts here. This is a double geometry here, and I can't join my vertices from the wider part with this magazine receiver top. It's a strange Boolean behavior, so this here my geometry continues. Okay, maybe I should. I just hide this part, and the front side of the shape boolean works well, but on the side, as you can see, I have a large polygon. I just delete this polygon and select the borders of its polygon, and now press F only for these edges. Here I'm also missing a vertex, and I should subdivide this edge and move this vertex to another one. After it, I will press merge. No, merge. It's two vertices. After it, I'm pressing M button, or I'm using my add-on. Also, we have a gap here, and I should correct this shape. I will make in the settings reference image only from side, so that we when viewed from left we don't see these pictures, and we will reference from view respectively. We made it as a separate object, and we are already okay. Let's continue further. I want to add a cylinder, for example, with 8 subdivision for this small object. Maybe 8 is not enough, but yes, 8 is not enough. Let's make a cylinder with 10 edges. It's not standard. Often we use 8, 12, 16, but now let's use 10. Okay, but this hole behind the cylinder, we will bake it from high poly to low poly. Okay, 10 subdivision, 10 edges is enough for the cylinder. Also, you can notice that on the references, this cylinder is wider inside, and the extraction magazine button connect to it. So we should have a magazine release lever. Also, I can slightly increase these edges to better baking. And now we have non-parallel and non-90-degree angle. And this paper is also good for baking. we need to add here an element. I will just insert a cylinder here, probably 16, and just okay, it fits pretty well. And I will remove half of the cylinder. We should use not a cylinder but a circle. I will create a polygon by pressing F button. After which I will simply make an extrusion along the y-axis to the end, after which I will position it correctly and will extrude it extra along x-axis. And it goes to the middle of the magazine, like this. Also I'm forming a kind of a semicircle. Also we have a soft bevel here. Perhaps not so soft. We don't need it so soft. Let's make an internal hole of 12 division with my add-on, or you can use simple cylinder with boolean. When I am started to begin my add-on, the scale is broken, so don't forget to apply scaling to your boolean objects. Now I'm going to make a cutout for 12. I will also make the inner part of this circle a little smaller, so that the bacon will work well here. Also, it's not only for bacon, but it's also create a more beautiful chamfer without adding additional polygons. So here when I have my deals with these edges, I can also make some seams for further UV unwrapping. That is, these parts are enough for us, and here we even have too many vertices. And let's reduce it a little. But the boundaries where it enters into our object is still visible and low poly. So we can select all the external vertices and subdivide them by pressing Ctrl+Shift+B, after which, if you want, you can also make a full circle with your loop tool add-on, and after it correct the topology of this shape. So we got a pretty good rivet, pretty local rivet, but at the same time it has a good silhouette. And I will place it so we will make a UV for one object, and after baking we will just duplicate it to another part of our gun. As we can see on the references, the magazine flows smoothly into another form. I will make a whole bevel when I connect these details. I made a checker deselect, you can find it here. I just added it to my quick favorites. as before. And here on the condition we may not have enough edges to connect, so I select my vertices and pressed Ctrl+Shift+B to add divisions to there. And now I could correct the topology. Because we should use new cylinder with 16. As we can see on the references, the front part has a pretty unusual form, so we'll do it later, but now let's combine this 3 detail with Boolean. So Boolean made his task, and now we have no geometry inside. Just because our magazine is symmetrical, I can use the symmetrical. But as you can see, there is a bad topology inside. So I should cut it with a knife, and after it I'm merging my vertices. We could add also another one bevel here, but this will be an extra waste of polygons, and I will just make this in the circle a little bigger. And now, as you can see, we have non-90 degrees angle. If you want to look at the magazine from the top of this pixel, you can press Shift 7. So I want to make a form like this. So we have 24 edges on the draft. And if I want this complex form, here I need 2 times more or 3 times more or 3 times more edges. So let's try with 48 edges cylinder instead of our old draft cylinder. I'm copying the X rotation to fit my new cylinder with the old one. I'm applying the scale and making a bevel. So I want to select every second edge. Likely it should only these vertices, and let's make something like this. It don't work quite right because okay, I just scale it a little bit up, and now I want to fit the shape from my reference. I'm pressing G twice to grab to move the edges. So we have such 24 such teeth, like on the reference. Also I can select these vertices and change the scale. Yes, this is what we need. We will add this silhouette on the normal map. Okay, we are done with the magazine. Then we can move on the front part to its forend and forehand grip. And after hand grip and forend, we will land the first part of our low body, and the second part we will finish the whole gun. I will remind you how the handle looks like from below, a full cylinder and then a beveled cylinder from the sides. I'm adding some edges for these forms, adding a bevel with individual regions. We also could use it with normal maps, but it's good with the geometry. Now we have about 7,000 polygons, 7,000 trees, so it's good. So in wireframe mode we can look at the detalization and it's pretty low poly. Some details we can also optimize. Also I will correct the n-gons after it. Some, for example, on the magazine. Now we have a big n-gon. I will translate it later. Okay, let's go back. Forehand. Hand grip. We could use here two objects, but let's use one. I exclude this element. It's not very visible, and we will save polygons on it. I will make the handle itself a little wider and the lower part thinner, like this. Adding a chamfer on the bottom. And now I need to cut off this part to make this handle a little flatter. For this, I just use a boolean with my modifier, and you can use just simple boolean with a cube. And I will cut it slightly. To correct my cut, I'm just moving my box. I can choose the height of this cutter by moving my box on the x-axis. Now I should cut only top part of our handle, but lower part should stay like here, like this. After which I will make a mirror modifier for my handle, or for my cutter, sorry. After which we should continue with the handle element that attach it to the rails. On the draft we have here a pretty fast topology, but now we need to make a rather unusual topology with complex shape. So let's try to just pull part of the cylinder up and forward, and after it we will cut it. Okay, I will duplicate my handle for backup, and after it I will apply modifier. Let's continue with the handle topology. These vertices practically don't affect the shape of our handle, so we can correct the topology to optimize it. We also see we have small problems here. Again, I can make a symmetry to my objects with my add-on, but you can use symmetry as I told above with F3 menu. And little just this jar because it's not rectangular. but if we will very long, we will change the of our flat object. But we also always can use tool flatten to make this big and gone become flat. Okay, let's undo it because we need to make it with the upper part. After it, I symmetrize it along Y and X axis. Okay, now we are ready to make this shape. The bottom back part is flat, but the forward part is complex. We can try to make an extrude for upper part of our cylinder and pull it up to our shape, like this. Here on the back side it will remain the same. I think we also lost one of the draft objects, but we will model in it. So let's make the shape like this to fit the references form. The shape remains flat here. You can see there is a small imperfections, but it's because our references is positioned slightly improperly, so we need to correct. Or for example, we can duplicate our references, hide the main references and position the references to match the proper position on the handle. Okay, as you can see on the reference, this part is flat. I will also add one more loop cut. Because it's necessary to make enough form. Now should make this object flat, but after it's changed the nearest geometry. Look like on the inner part of this detail. It narrows and becomes quite narrow, having the form like this. Of course, we could not repeat this shape much, but within the framework of our course, within the framework of our practice, let's make it similar to our references. All this part is flat, as you can see on the reference. So I will scale it on the x-axis. But first we need to understand which shape from the front side. I'm looking on my references right now, and it looks like flattened parts here. We need to form another kind of stiffening rib here like this and break it forward. And now let's work with the back part of the front handle. I also should simplify this part. And now, while I'm working with the symmetry, this edge is good, but after all, I will dissolve also this edge for topology sakes. but we can leave these edges and move it slightly forward to make a good non-90-degree angle. Okay, let's move on to the back part. And the topology here is also pretty interesting. We have a flat right here. Let's try to make it with the loop tools flatten. But in this case, it curves the geometry here. By the way, we could use for that also boolean. It's late now, but if you want, you can bool it with a box to make a perfectly flat cut. As you can see, the back part, it's like more flat. And we already have a form on the bottom, like on the reference. I don't like how it looks here. The topology looks strange. Well, I'm just adding a extra one vertex and merge the old vertex to a new one. And these details also flat on the ref. And I can move it along the y-axis with the control button press to magnet it, to snap it to my another vertex. Okay, I also can collapse these edges. Okay. Because this detail is flat, I can even make the topology like this. No, it's a front side. I make a mistake. I thought this is a flat bottom side. I just mixed up the front and the back of our form. So okay, on the bottom, on the back it's flatten, and then the front it looks like this. Okay, this is tail, as we can see, a small tail with I want to position it on the center. The front part also should be flat. Okay, all the parts of this handle from behind, it's on the 1Y scale, so it's completely flat on the bottom. Can press select all by rate faces by side and press the grade and then 4 to check your angle. We also could add a bevel to these details. We have quite narrow space here and we could make a maximum inset. After this inset will become a side edge. I want to merge vertices like this. We get rid of narrow triangles that spoil the shading. Also, we can delete these internal polygons because we never could see it. In some reason our front and back part are not the same. I have it remains to continue with this rail. You can see here we have let's get rid of hang-ons. On the shading it would look like this, but because we will bake it later, it's not necessary to make a hard edges on form like this. But sometimes we need to make hard edges. So let's make brackets. As we remember, we have a rather complex cutter here with symmetry, and let's use it and apply it after. Okay, let's just apply this boolean and simply manually adjust the form of this bracket. I don't want to make a chamfer here, and I just will scale a little bit the outer side of this bracket to make a good bakery later. You can also make a mirror. Okay, we don't need the inner part of this rail because we can see it. And we also must make it a little shorter. Okay, now we have the Picatinny rail and Forend left. But our Picatinny rail, we made it good on the draft, and it's have a pretty good form. The rail have no bevel edges, but on the front part of it, it's have two interesting bevels. Let's just use boolean to make these interesting bevels. Let's scale it a little bit and move the form. And now I can mirror my boolean along the Forend object. As you can see on the references, the cutter is slightly below, but sake of the optimization, I will make it like this. The bar is ready, okay. We will also use it on the other bars, on other Picatinny rails, but slightly modified. We have this kind of balls, but we will bake it. So we have only hand guard on this part of video. This shape is completely repeated till this moment, but in the front part of the hand guard it's pretty complex topology. Let's start with the back part. We have now solidify modifier. We can see that up to this part of the forehand of the hand guard, the shape is the same, but after it changes. Okay, let's feel the back part of it. Back part suits us completely, except that it should have some chamfer on this, like this. In front we have a rather unusual shape. Moreover, we have a small rounding in the front too. So I will use boolean here to make this complex form. It looks like there was a cylinder here and then a part of this cylinder was cut out. So let's try to make it. I will add a cylinder to make a bevel, or to make a boolean, excuse me. Place it properly. To match this form. Now I want to first cut out a flat part of a cylinder. And after this, I want to cut another part from the cylinder. Like this. And from below, you should cut another one cylinder. And the shape is, on my opinion, is pretty good. And now we can move our cutters to correct the shape. And in fact, we can even make a cutter from this part of another cutter, but not from this cylinder, from parent cylinder. Yes, we should delete the lower part. Okay. And just I'm correcting the shapes. So I don't have enough the subdivisions, so I Control B to make bevels on the edges. So I also need to round my front part of the hang rod. So I will make it with the boolean, but you can do it with the box or another form. Also we have a cutter on the bottom side. It's a cutter for Picatinny rail. So let's make another one boolean. I'll have changed the opacity of my references so I can see it's better right now. Yes, another one boolean from my hand guard. And let's apply a modifier and finish the front. I backupped my unapplied form with the modifier, and on the copy I applied the modifier. Right now I'm find the button Smart Apply, as I thought it won't be, it should use a mirror. It also apply a mirror, so I just can apply all. And now I'm adding another subdivision. Let's check everything still geometrically, so that everything is fine. Mm, We have unfortunately long triangles. I don't want it, so I want to make some cutters, treat off thin long triangles. Okay, well, guns from the front part of our handguard. As I mentioned, you can check it by pressing the select from the above, select by trade, face it by sides. I can use after triangulate by pressing Ctrl T. And now I can get rid of several lines to make the optimization better. And on the next lesson we complete model and other parts of our low poly, suppressor, sides, etc. Alright, we have completed the low poly base for the lower part of the MP5, making sure the mesh is clean, optimized and ready for the next steps. We focused on good edge flow, proper topology and keeping everything lightweight for game engines. There are still a few small details left to refine, but we will take care of those before moving on to the unwrapping. Next, we will continue with the upper half and additional details. So, stay tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the upcoming episode.